Press the bell icon on YouTube and don't miss another update.
Okay. Will U.S. policy on CA and Article 330 change if Biden wins? How to ensure that three arms of government do not interfere in Hindu rites, rituals, and temple, just like they do not interfere in Abrahamic. This is up your street, Abhijit. I think you should take this.
Look, the problem here is, on one hand, I would like to believe that America is an institutional democracy, which is to say, unlike India, which sort of works in a feudal way. When the prime minister is weak, the national security advisor is weak. When the prime minister is strong, then the NSA is strong. When the prime minister is weak, he has no control over what his ministers do. When the prime minister is strong, he tends to take over all the decision making himself. So unlike us, we have been led to believe that American policy is institutional. It may be true in that the only changes you will probably see properly will be that there will be a change in the way the American government says things, but there won't be a major change in what the American government actually does, which is to keep its nose out of the situation completely. However, we should also remember that almost 70% of Indians are voting for Biden, in which case they are a captive constituency, and Biden may see no reason to, give them concessions that they have not asked for in the first place. In any case, most of them tend to be sold on this entire, the Hindu and the Guardian kind of narratives on Kashmir. The second issue is the Muslims are making him work very, very hard for their vote. So he may have to throw them lots of bones. And worryingly, very, very worryingly, what you see is even places like the AJC, the American Jewish Council, they have started buying into the Pakistani narrative on these things. The AJC has gone so woke. There are parts of IPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, that has gone so woke that they have been taking consistently anti-India lines. And these are very, very important because, these are the fundraisers, these are the community fundraisers and things like that are taking anti-India lines, which may end up influencing Biden quite a bit. And Kamala might have to, downplay her Indianness. I mean, she never played up her Indianness. She just realized she was an Indian. It was almost like she was in some schizophrenic state for 50. How old is she? 65, 70, 80, 90. For the last 90 years of her life. And now suddenly in her 91st year, she realizes, 91st year, not even in the 91st year. In the last 10th second of her 91st year, she suddenly realizes she's an Indian. She will have to backtrack that as well. So that's what's going to happen with US policy. But back to Sanjay ji. Dr. Deepak Guru, Shri Dixit sir, JK IAS officers merged with AGMUT officers, or how else were they adjusted?
Oh, and actually, if you read what is called the JNK Reorganization Act, 2019, it is very clearly stated there that there's a JNK cadre now prospectively from the date of appointment of the Reorganization Act. There will be a separate cadre for JNK, a separate cadre for Ladakh. Ladakh will be, of course, in the AGMUT. But JNK will have a separate cadre. I got it wrong. That they will be in AGMUT cadre prospectively. And the JNK cadre will stay as it was prior to the appointment of the Act. And after the appointment of the Act, they will get into AGMUT cadre. This is the situation. Some of my batchmates were sorely disappointed because they thought that they could get into the AGMUT cadre, but they realized that they would stay in the JNK cadre. However, now they can buy land there. Yeah, next one.
Next question is Vip Kohli. Sir, why aren't we seeing a complete crackdown on PFI and SDPI as of yet when so many recent violent events directly point to them?
Oh, I don't know really. I am also at a loss to understand that, I think, unless the strategy is to draw them out even more. That could be a strategy. What do you say, Abhijit? What's your take? Okay, I think there's some problem at Abhijit Iyer's end, so we'll take the next question. Oh, he comes back.
Okay,
Oh,
I'm back.
you're back. So what is your take? I said that I don't really know. That's what I said. Unless there is a strategy to draw them out even more.
I generally I don't associate strategic wisdom with this government in that sense. So I will just keep quiet and let you doing the answering of this question. I've noticed one thing about this government. I was always taught good policy is about the second order and third order of effect, which is very simple. Say you go to an electric post and you put your finger somewhere near the socket and you get a shock. That is the first order of policy. The second order is what you do after that. Initially, you start wearing chappals, rubber chappals, so that you dissipate the current. And then in the longer term, you fetch the electrician to fix the electricity connection. And then the fourth order is you rewire the entire house if necessary. We don't see that happen with this government. They do the first, and then what is meant to happen 2, 3, 4, 5, वो सब नहीं होता है. झटका के बाद कुछ नहीं होता है. So that for me is problematic. But anyway, next question, Karthik N. If state fails to control Islam in India, then what options remain to us as a civilization to protect ourselves?
You see, I'm not that pessimistic because I have analyzed and diagnosed the failings. And those failings, if they had continued with that, then there would have been no 370, no CAA, no triple talaq, and not even a talk about UCC, which is happening. So what has happened is that the weaponization of Islam is in the hands of the AMM class. And I have always said that if you want to defang them, then defang the AMM class. And the hotbeds that they control, places like AMU, places like Devband Bareilly, and Jamia, which used to be a secular institution, that has also been allowed to be weaponized. In 2011, some silly little institution called Commission for Minority Educational Institutions says it is a minority institution, and it becomes a minority institution, which it cannot, because it is by way of a legislation. This damned commission cannot change the legislation. Even Supreme Court cannot change the legislation. But the veto from this AMM class has been taken away. So whatever you see, the struggle that is happening is because of that veto having been taken away. And we have to see how that struggle pans out, whether the government simmers down, or these people simmer down a little, or they are able to control them. But at least a veto is no longer there. That is something very, very important, and it's a strategic shift, according to me.
Right. Your thoughts on the Rukhini Kalimaki controversy?
Rukhini Kalimaki controversy is not exactly connected with our discussion here. So I think
kind of is in a sense, and I'll tell you why. See, Rukhini had been giving everyone the nasty, dirty side of Daesh and Al-Qaeda, which never suited the woke agenda. If you go through her timeline, she's never taken a woke position in her life. She has traveled. She's been quite blasé about her own personal security, going to certain areas. And none of the New York Times reporters liked her coming in and sort of poaching their stories. The second issue has been that with Rukhini, if you actually look at the podcast that she did with this particular terrorist, fake terrorist, as it turns out. She did a total of 6 podcasts. By podcast 4 itself, if you listen to them, she was bringing out the contradictions in his own story. She was bringing out why is it when this man claims that he was so deep in with ISIS, the Canadian police haven't arrested him, and so on and so forth. Now, the thing here is, you look at the way they've gone after Rukhini. What is the exact charge against her? I can't even see a valid charge against her that every other journalist is not guilty of even more. The problem is she is not woke, and she's being targeted for not being woke. And the definition of woke is that you're a third rater and you have nothing better to do other than to go after other people. So this is particularly dangerous. Don't go after Rukhini Kalimaki just because you don't like the New York Times. Remember, she's been the one person there holding the banner of proper reporting for a very long time. Also remember, there is absolutely no investigation in the New York Times into the garbage of Russiagate and all of that, which has been completely disproven so far. So all the fake reporting that they did, no investigation. But Rukhini, where she herself brings out the contradictions, is somehow suspect now. And that too a hit piece run by the Washington Post. So, this entire cabal out there, Rana Ayub, Ishan Tharoor, all the third raters if you actually look at the editorial board of the New York Times, you'll see that there's absolutely nobody intelligent out there. Once upon a time, it used to have giants. Now, forget pygmies. They're not even amoeba or paramecium or single cell organisms right now, including the editor, who has absolutely no great thing to his credit. He's just black and he's there as a sort of affirmative action token.
Okay,
Next.
that is colorful best, and that's so much like our own woke liberals throwing the charges of intolerance at all and sundry. Okay. Next one is
really is clear that it's not about secularism. Instead, it's belief. What conditions, according to, would allow Islam to coexist? I think that's a bit of a meta question.
I think I'm getting the gist of what he's asking. There is, it's not exactly a hadith, it's a spurious hadith. Let me say that at the outset. And the spurious hadith says that Islam began at Medina and it will contract and end at Medina. So see, it is with the immutability which is associated with Islam, it is impossible for it to coexist with anyone. And therefore, you have to have what is called ijtihad or reform, or it will collapse upon itself with its own contradictions. But while it does, it will damage everybody else around a great deal.
Just to add something very quickly, remember there is absolutely no historical evidence or of the Prophet Muhammad per se. The first epigraphic as in written inscription that can be dated about the Prophet Muhammad happened 60 years after his death at the Al-Quds Mosque at the Dome of the Rock, Al-Aqsa in Jerusalem. 60 years after his death in 1691-92. And there are mosques, supposedly mosques even before that, though after his death, but before the first epigraphic mention, that do not point to Mecca. They point to Jerusalem and are full of imagery, and in fact, quite a bit of sexual imagery as well. So next question.
And I might just add here that even the language in which Quran is written, it is now proved that that was not the language of the Hejaz, the state of Hejaz, at the time it is supposed to have been written. That's much later, almost a century later, that it evolved into that kind of a script. So there are a lot of contradictions.
Do you want to take Tanishq? I don't think it comes up in our... Is it contextual to what we discussed?
I think we already described it. It's the woke liberals doing the woke things, and they will continue to do woke things. And okay, I think that's all that we need to comment on that.
Next question. Guys, next question.
Next question, please. Okay.
Can rules be changed in a way that no political party can play religion and politics and religion? Do you think real steps need to be taken? Well, what do you think secularism is about? It's failed in every country. Even in militant secular states like France, which is anti-clerical, you can't separate the two. In America, you can't separate the two. In India, you can't separate. We've never separated the two. It's dharma nirpeksh. It's not the French style laïcité. So no, you can't. Everywhere religion just creeps in. It's not happening. Next question.
Especially in India.
Yeah.
India is a civilizationally dharmic society, and this is why consciously, very consciously, if you look at the Constituent Assembly debates on secularism, it has been brought out very clearly why they do not want to brand India as a secular state. It has always been that all-accepting kind of civilization. So by doing this secularism bit, what they have done is that they have given protection to the belief-based ideologies and allowed them even to proselytize. That is what the net effect of adding that secularism bit has been. And naturally, there will be reaction.
Next, Nishkant Sharma. Liaquat Pact saved Pakistan from certain collapse. They didn't want poor Muslims from India. They only wanted Nawabs and money. We kept... Okay, that's not a question. Next question, please. Not
I agree with that observation to a good extent. I said the same thing. The way.
Hearing a nice long time that Pakistan is imploding, but what will actually trigger the final collapse?
I think, Abhijit, that's your question.
बॉस देखो ये फाइनल कोलैप्स की फैंटेसीज देखना तुम भूल जाओ. The seeing that Pakistan will collapse fantasy is a bit like them seeing how India will split into Telugustan and Dravidistan and Bangalistan, and how 70% of India's territory will actually be part of the new Pakistan. ये ख्वाब देखने प्लीज भूल जाओ. पहले अपना घर संभालो. देखो, जब तुम्हारे हिंदुस्तानी बाहर जाते हैं सब हिंदुस्तान पे थूकते रहते हैं, ठीक है ना. जब मैं बाहर जाता हूं मैं कभी हिंदुस्तान पे नहीं थूकता हूं, अंदर रह के हिंदुस्तान पे थूकता हूं या हिंदुस्तान के पॉलिसीज पे थूकता हूं, ठीक है. पर हमारे लोग बाहर जाके अमेरिका में बैठ के सब ये इल्हान ओमार की ठंग ठंग आरती उतार रहे होते हैं, ठीक है ना. खुद अपने देश को they only celebrate people who speak ill of India, okay. And they will only vote for people who try to meddle around with India. On the other hand, you look at Pakistanis, they will never speak ill of their country when they're out of their country. They actually have a much stronger sense of nationhood for whatever. 90% of Pakistanis have been treated like shit by their own country because it's run by that nexus of Fauji, Zamindar and industrialists, so-called industrialists, where they're all the same thing. It's like a round-robin kind of arrangement. And all those people abroad, not one of them particularly disagrees. You have the occasional sort of, say, Arif Ajakia or, Hamare Tariq Fatah. But other than these people, one or two, you can count them on the tips of your fingers, really. The vast majority of these scholars, they follow this ideology of Pakistan. ये हमारी TMC MP की जो बीबी है, वो TMC MP कौन है? शौगता ना, शौगता रॉय या दत्ता या मित्रा, उसकी बीबी है आयशा जलाल. She wrote a book, La Soul Spokesperson, where all she succeeds in showing is that Jinnah failed at every spot, but she spins it around and say, great man, he succeeded. All his failures are also success. This is the kind of people that you have. And this is the kind of penetration that you have, that this woman is married to an MP of a ruling party in India. तो आप ही समझ लो कि बॉस, पाकिस्तान अभी मेरे लाइफ टाइम में गिरने वाला नहीं है, पाकिस्तान के आपके लाइफ टाइम में भी गिरने वाला नहीं है, ठीक है ना. ये ख्वाब देखना बंद करो, पहले अपना घर सुधारो. देवभा मैकेनिकल, क्या लगता है सर 370 वापस करवा लेंगे ये लोग?
Not that easy. I don't think that would happen. Let me be very, very categorical with it. Whatever Farooq Abdullah may say and whatever Mehbooba Mufti may say, and whatever, what is that other guy? That chit, Umar Abdullah may say, that's something that's, according to me, irreversible.
And we should actually salute Farooq Abdullah ji, because he has said, he wants Chinese-style intervention in Kashmir, Chinese a la Uyghuristan or whatever it is. He's the only true patriot. We should all stand up and salute him. I want everybody watching this to stand up and salute Farooq Abdullah and paste a poster of Farooq Abdullah on all your walls, because he wants Chinese solution to Islamism problem. He's the only real patriot amongst all of us. हम सब उसके मुकाबले कुछ भी नहीं है. वो भगवान है.
Let's give it to him. Great.
बिल्कुल. हाँ, next question. Jai Bharat Mata and Jwala Ma. Allah bless you, Iyer ji. Thank you. Allah ki देन है सब कुछ. Is your book available in the US?
Well, right now it is on Garuda Publications website. It will soon be on Amazon as soon as the final printed copy is ready. So I think another week or 10 days.
I think it might be important in the subsequent podcasts if you could, in the meantime, ask Garuda Prakashan if they've got any plans to release it in America or sublet it to somebody in America for printing out there, or ship abroad maybe. Is there value in one China policy and Gilgit? यार one China policy अभी बात नहीं करेंगे, जब हम प्रोग्राम करेंगे उसके बारे में तब बात करेंगे. और Gilgit Balochistan is ours. We've claimed that now. Amit Shah has made that very clear. So the Pakistanis can do what they want. We don't accept it. Next, do we need the right to bear arms? Yes, Kashmiri Pandits should be given the right to bear arms. They should be given AK-47s and anti-tank weapons and bazookas and sent back to Kashmir. We need to create a...
You got the question wrong. He's asking for bear arms.
I think he meant bear arms, not bear arms.
But I think a lot of people would be happy with Kashmiris bearing their arms, okay?
Bearing their arms, yeah. It seems that Islamists have been perspicacious and far-sighted where nationalists have not. Possible reasons. Sanjay sir?
Oh, well, I think they still follow the script. And it is easy for what is called a book-based religion. They have a few books and they follow them religiously. And exactly. We have a library. And because we have a library, as they say, that fools are seldom in doubt. And the wise people and the more intellectual people, they're always in doubt. So these people, they have a very simple methodology. Just follow the book, follow Fatawa Alamgiri, that's all. And bring back the Mughal Empire.
And just to add to that, remember, all Muslim kids go to class to learn their religion. Tell me one Hindu kid that actually learns about their theology and things like that, or their religious books. Number one. Number two, remember, even the laws, the way they are, they give preference to a textual interpretation of religion, which is what Islam is, rather than vocal traditions and customs, which is what Hinduism is. And the third is, unfortunately, there is this very nasty tendency in Indian nationalists that they unfortunately don't read much. They certainly don't write much because they actually live lives. They're not humanities students that do nothing except give speeches all day. They actually have lives to run and families to feed. But there is one very nasty thing in them, that they are still fixated on Aryan invasion theory. They are still fixated on was Harappa Aryan or not. They are still fixated on if the Boeing 777 or the Boeing 787 or the Airbus 350 was actually the Pushpaka Vimana mentioned in Ramayana. ये सब आप करो, पर इससे आपको कुछ मिलने वाला नहीं है, ठीक है ना? Move on.
No, I disagree with you about the Aryan invasion theory. That's a very important narrative to break, and it has been broken. Anyway, we will have a separate session on that.
It's been broken. But why go on about it now that it's broken? Okay. Islamic Jihad and Sino-Maoist joint venture is usually organized. TV channels on their payrolls, Hindu or organized ads looking for fight. What more should we do?
That's up your street. This is a policy issue. The Institute of Conflict and Peace should answer this.
The Institute of Peace and Conflict, not conflict. There is another place called the Institute of Conflict and Peace Studies somewhere in Spain. हम उसमें नहीं हैं, हम IPCS हैं, not ICPS.
Okay.
But
corrected.
yes. So with this particular question, it's look, we haven't even gotten our heads around to a proper response to Twitter or Facebook who have been interfering in Indian elections. We don't know technology policy, we don't understand technology policy, and it is very, very problematic in this country. In America, there are limits to what Donald Trump can do because the freedom of a private enterprise to do what it wants is absolute. In India, there are huge restrictions on private enterprises. There is a lot you can do to private enterprises, especially foreign enterprises that meddle in Indian elections. But we do nothing. In fact, Twitter and Facebook executives are sitting deep inside PMO. There is one person who goes to PMO every day. I think you know his name, a former TV personality, one employed by one or probably both these things. So if you look at the way that they've been bribing politicos, government officials, media, and TV channels, it is not just them. It is a whole nexus that you look at. China, wokeism, this whole sort of leftist capture of the narrative in the West and everything. They can give you free scholarships. They can give you Harvard में हमारी एक Islamist journalist जो गई हैं Harvard में assistant professor बनने के लिए, and several other things.
You're talking about Gigi Abdullah?
Is it? I don't know. I just know a certain Islamist, a person who normalizes Islamist discourses has become an assistant professor at Harvard. I don't know the name. I've never heard these names before.
Nidhi Razdan.
Is she? Okay, I've never heard of her. Who is she? I don't know. But anyway, there's a lot of things like that. ये तोड़ने के लिए पहले एनिमी को समझना पड़ता है. उनके if you keep pining like a lover for their approval, you are never going to understand the root of the problem or be able to deal with the problem.
Okay, next one. Will the introduction of UCC weaken the power of Islamists? It's going to do nothing. Because what you must understand, I have a, I think 3-year-old article on this, that Uniform Civil Code is not one civil code. You please understand, read what Dr. Ambedkar said in the Constituent Assembly about it. And if they want to do anything, they don't need to do this. All they need to do is to abolish the 1937 Shariat Act. That's what they need to do. Okay, next one.
Why did adding secular to our constitution not result in the separation of religion and state like India in other Western democracies? So this is very...
India is not a Western democracy, that's all.
Yeah. We're not a Western democracy, but understand, see, you use the term secular. There are 3 different variants of secular. One is French laïcité, which is anti-clerical, which is militantly opposed to any religious signs in government. They see religion as toxic, which is why, the revolutionary government in France in 1792, they used to execute clergymen. Okay. Then you have America, which was born of the religious persecution in Britain. And they basically wanted all kinds of lunatics to be accommodated. The Puritan fathers were lunatics in that sense. So, everybody could have their own beliefs. In India, it is more like the American system. It is dharma nirpeksh. It is not dharmaheen. State dharam mein, state does not take sides in religion. But religion is not excluded from government, unfortunately. Or fortunately, I don't know what it is. So please understand, this word secular is such a crude term. It masks several different variants of secularism.
It wasn't required in India at all, because India, they never had this kind of a discrimination or the power of the clergy that the West had. Anyway, that's a topic for a separate day. Then Rahul Verma.
Can something so simple like CA NRC can be narrated as some bizarre act resulted in international backlash than a riot? So liberals and Islamists can change narrative, hijack any city, any day, your view. Ji, sir.
I've already expressed my view. I've told you that this has been the standard operating procedure, not from today, but for over a century. When it's there in my book, if you read it, then you'll find it. It's throughout the almost all the pages, the subtext in all the pages of the book. Okay, next one, please. Why don't BJP help Ankur Sharma to free Naina Devi Mandir from government control in J&K? And in the case of Roshni Act, I think that's not really our remit today. That's going too much into detail. So let's pass over this question. Take the next one. Why Bangladesh not passing population control law? How does that affect us? I don't know. Can you make out? No, I think, okay. Sorry, I don't know the answer. Yogesh Patel.
How can India improve manufacturing processes? Our products are very inferior and low quality to compete.
Well, again, I think this topic is today not about manufacturing processes, but if you're talking generally about economy, then I think we will deal with it on some other day. Anas Skywalker.
In our India on Reddit has been compromised to Islamists, has become a hotbed to borderline radicalization. How do we fight this info war?
Yeah, that's your question.
Look, we are so behind on the info war. Are you not seeing how we are completely unable to deal with narratives? See, when you say India is a third world country, it doesn't imply dirty roads and bad buildings and things like that, or like the previous question, bad production quality. The primary identifier of a third world country is extremely low human capital. And this is what Sanjay ji and I were discussing, the shocking lack of scholarship in discussing the history of Kashmir, our own history of Islamism in this country and things like that. It manifests itself across the thing, including in InfoWar. I can tell you our cybersecurity is a joke. तो इन्फो वॉर की बात छोड़ो, जब आपका साइबर सिक्योरिटी ही जोक है, इन्फो वॉर तो बहुत दूर की है. You have lost the info war quite some time back, and I'm not seeing any steps being taken to correct it. It's going to get worse with the woke pansies. Next.
Yeah. Afghanistan's settlement will increase terrorism and embolden Pakistan to do such activities in India. Okay, that's a question for the international specialist.
I have no idea about this. I don't know. Will Afghanistan settlement means what? I don't know. Sorry. Should we have US 2 amendments to have arms? What is the connection to this right now? Look, we keep saying India is a country, a first world country is where the state has the monopoly on violence. In India, you do not have the monopoly on violence. In a country where the state does not have the monopoly on violence, you can't have the right to bear arms. This is not an Indian debate. You need better police reforms.
Yeah, next question. Always pleasure to see Iyer Mitra ji on Jaipur Dialogues. How best to strike at the heart of the Islamo-Marxist Texas. Can we not infiltrate the madrasas or reincarnate the Quran as Sanatani? That's a good suggestion.
पर ये लोग माहिर हैं, और we are like, see, there is the view to think of us as somehow the Aesop's fable of the rabbit and the turtle. We are the turtle, they are the rabbit kind of thing. Sadly, we are not the turtle. We are the snail, which isn't mentioned in Aesop's fable, which didn't even get past the starting point by the time the turtle finished the race. तो बॉस इसमें ना you need a whole of state approach. ये ऐसे वैसे होने वाला नहीं है. It needs to be a social approach. The BJP has done nothing to create ecosystems or things like that. So, it's not going anywhere. Every passing day, my sense of alarm and despondency only keeps growing worse and worse and worse. Sir, I think this is a question for you. I think CIA can do this. Can CIA and oppressed CCP members re-engineer Tiananmen Square incident against...
Shit,
यार इसमें इस्लामिज्म का क्या कनेक्शन है भाई? Let's stick to the topic of today, ना?
Okay, next one.
Your take on the Assam government converting madrasas to teach non-religious studies. Can this be a template for other states?
I think my opinion is that it's a very good thing to do. The only thing is that, as I always put that caveat, I hope the law is implemented properly. If it is implemented properly, it is a very progressive step to take. Ajay Nair, I think this is the last question we have today.
Yes.
When can we get rid of
politics that is still trying to appease the left wing?
Oh, I think he's borrowed a term from your lexicon.
I coined it. I coined saffron communist. He's being polite and calling them saffron socialist.
So what do you say about saffron communist? The last word. You have the last word.
Dekh, boss, saffron, how are we going to change them, boss? This is ingrained in them. They believe that, there is still this belief that India shining and Vajpayee's reforms lost in the elections. They did not. There were other causes at play out there which people don't want to talk about. But there is this belief that if you do proper capitalism in this country, you're going to lose elections. Until then, people need to start valuing India more than they value themselves and their parties. Till then, we have always been a capitalist state. To be a Hindu is to be a capitalist. All right, but to be a benign capitalist, not a nasty capitalist like George Soros. George Soros is more like, Islamic capitalist. We don't do that kind of nonsense. So where are we going to go? I don't know. If you look at what has happened now, in 2011, we were 23% agricultural. By 2019, we had regressed. We had become 43% agricultural. I think after this whole migration business post-COVID, we've become about 60 to 65% agricultural now. You're basically looking at the remaining 35% of the population to cough up the revenue to provide MNREGA to the remaining 65, a large part of the remaining 65% of the population. It's not going to do. You're heading for another financial issue like we did in 1991. Maybe not immediately, but another 2-3 years. Let's see. It's unsustainable. It's unsustainable. It's a business unfriendly government. What can we do? We can just point it out, but they don't listen to us. They know everything. Humko sab kuch pata hai. Congratulations. Karo. Karo aur maro.
Okay. Karo ya maro. Karo aur maro. Karo aur maro. Okay. Marna to nishchit hai har halat mein. So that brings us to the end of this episode, and we thank each other because I think it was a conversation, not really what is called a question answer or an interview. And now I think I will request Abhijit to come here a couple more times in the next 10 days because we also have to discuss American elections and a few things that people have asked us to do.
And the important question of labor. Don't forget that was an important question that I do wish to answer, but just not when we're talking about Islamism. On labor, why low quality products, why India produces low quality products. पर वो बाद में करेंगे.
तो इकोनॉमी पे करेंगे हम. एक इकोनॉमी पे करेंगे, एक अमेरिकन इलेक्शन पे करेंगे और जल्दी करेंगे. And till then, goodbye. ज्वाला माता की जय.
जय.